A lot of people say, for me, it's about the policies. What are those policies? I have them right here. They're just out. I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to the Chris Cuomo Project. Thank you for subscribing and following. So the Republicans didn't have a platform in 2020. They just kept what was in 2016. But now they have a new set of promises. And in fact, before they lay them out here and what's going to be voted on at the convention, right? That's what the convention was supposed to be about. They say, to make clear our commitment, we offer to the American people the 2024 GOP platform to make America great again. It's a forward-looking agenda that begins with the following 20 promises that we will accomplish very quickly when we win the White House and Republican majorities in the House and Senate. And there are 20 promises allegedly echoed and endorsed by former President Donald John Trump. Let's go through each one of them and see what they're about, what they're not, and what they mean if you're somebody who puts policy first. This is the 2024 policy platform for the Republican Party. It is not Project 2025. Confusing? Yes. Distinguishable? Absolutely. One is about a political party. The other one is a propaganda tool of a fringe conservative mentality, which I will detail for you in another episode. 1, seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. That's a layup, okay? Polls well, first time I've ever seen national security conflated with immigration, conflated with the southern border, showing up in polls for an election as high as it is now. So that's the number one thing. What does that tell you? That's the theory of Trump's case, okay? Fear, okay? Outrage. And the Democrats have handed it to him by their inaction on the border. And yes, they have this pushback that they wanted to work on it and the legislation was shot down, but it was a last-second effort. They ignored it for years and they own the problem. But putting it first also prioritizes what this campaign is about for Trump, which is scaring you, because we don't have a migrant invasion, okay? We have an unsecured southern border. Is this potato? No, not to me, because it's not like these people want to take us over. They're filling jobs that we have that are open. They're coming for the opportunity, okay? And the idea that we don't need them is silly. Even Trump used to say that. Now, he used to say he wanted just the Norwegians. I'm sure that wasn't about color. I'm sure there's no, brown menace theory going on in here. But that's the first promise, and it's a good one. And I'm not even going to bust them about how, because there are some simple ways that Trump had put in place the first time that will certainly slow the flow at the border. Will it hurt our economy? Maybe. But you're not going to hear anything about that until it happens, and then he'll blame it on something else. But the how in securing the southern border matters. 2, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. What about the Dreamers? Trump has said he'd protect the Dreamers. So you get brought here as a baby, or you get brought here illegally in a belly and are born here. Well, then you're a citizen. Oh, okay. But what about all of those people? What about that population? What about the people who are working and integrated into society and in communities, who are making a difference, who are helping make America as great as she is? Really? Are you going to be selective? How do you do this? How do you do this operation in a way that doesn't just sound good and look horrible? 3, end inflation and make America affordable again. This is straight propaganda. The tax cuts added to the pressure of inflation. All of the quantitative easing that Trump continued and increased created inflation. The way corporations are allowed to raise prices unchecked. I don't know how you do check them, but he was totally on board with that. So how does he end inflation? Tax cuts? That doesn't end inflation. It does the opposite. Now, I'm not anti-tax cuts. The key to tax cuts is targeting. Who and how and when. But he's not offering a plan. end inflation. Well, why didn't he end it the first time? Oh, it was really low when he was there, but everything he was doing was adding to it. And I'm not even counting what happened in the pandemic. And you don't have to believe me. Believe the data, okay? Believe the data. Look at debt and deficit under Trump and Biden. Now, I don't like either of their fiscal policies, but Trump sure as hell ain't no conservative, okay? He spent like crazy, not including the pandemic. The data doesn't lie. It can be twisted. But where did all that borrowing come from? Oh, just the pandemic. No. Outside the pandemic, it was trillions. More than we've ever seen before. Why? That is ending inflation? No. Make America the dominant energy producer in the world by far. Can we pump enough to do that? We've never pumped more than we are right now. That's a fact. Could you still pump more than that? Yes. Would that change our gas pump reality, our fuel reality in the wintertime? No, not necessarily. Why? It's a world market. And we have a lot of influence. So does OPEC. So does Russia. And there are a couple of other minor players that matter. But it's a world market. So just because you pump more doesn't mean our gas prices are going to plummet. And anyone who tells you that is lying to you. Now, does pumping more have benefits? Absolutely. But you're going to have to hear the details. All right? And he's not offering any for a reason. It's easier to make a promise than to deliver on it. Stop outsourcing and then turn the United States into a manufacturing superpower. He failed at that the first time. He made the same promise and he failed demonstrably. Why? Because technology has as much, innovation has as much to do with the removal of jobs as just saying, well, they make it cheaper somewhere else. But as a matter of fact, they do make it cheaper somewhere else. And unless America wants to do the best thing that we could do for ourselves, would be to pay more for goods and make them here at home and stop our dependency on China for making all the shit that we want and now need. But will we do that? Hell no. Why? Nobody wants to suffer short term. Nobody wants to suffer. That's why they don't fix any of the entitlements. Social Security, social insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. They don't really fix them. They just Band-Aid them. Why? Because nobody wants to feel any pain now. Large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips. Okay, no tax on tips is going to be popular, but it was put in for a reason. And I get why it's popular. And sometimes in politics, you want to do what's popular, but there's a reason it was put in. What was the reason? The reason was to deal with people, to adjust wage structure and to reflect the economic reality of how money is made in the food service business, the food and beverage service business. Was it the right fix? That's up to you. That's a political argument. Large tax cuts for workers. Didn't do it the first time. Trickle down? Really? Look at the analysis of the tax cuts in 2016. Who they helped, by what percentage. And I'm not saying that the top got the most benefit. The top gets the most benefit because they pay the most in taxes. But if you target the tax cut to the middle class, then that doesn't happen. That did not happen the first time. It should not have been called the middle class tax cut. And him saying it this time is suspicious because he didn't do it the first time. Know who people are by what they do the first time. 7, defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. This, to me, is propaganda. Don't let people play you for a sucker by scaring you. Well, censorship, freedom of speech, I agree. But what I don't know is that Trump won't do his own variety of it. I do believe censorship is real, but it happened under both administrations. Happened during the pandemic. It's happening all the time. It's happened to me. I've been censored. I had my account erased or whatever they call it permanently. And then they gave it back when they found out that I was a member of the media. It's real. I just don't know that Trump is the remedy. But that's something that they're talking about. But of course, look, there's no definition to it because, one, this is just a listed promise, right? But we didn't see it the last time. 8, prevent World War III. restore peace in Europe and the Middle East, and build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country, all made in America. That has been largely seen as unnecessary and just an expansion of the industrial military complex, which is the last thing we need. In terms of ending the wars over there, how? Well, they only happened on Biden's watch. You know, more sophisticated analysis will say that what took root happened before Biden and during Biden. So I think saying it is easy, doing it, not so much. 9, end the weaponization of government against the American people. This is about prosecutions. We'll see what Trump does. Will Trump go after people like me? We'll see. But I think that this is a real problem. I think even Alec Baldwin is being prosecuted because of who he is. And I think Trump was prosecuted in New York because it's Trump. I thought those cases were weak at best. I think it's a real problem. Will he stop it or will he use it for his own ends? We'll see. 10, stop the migrant crime epidemic. We don't have one. I know you've heard of cases, literally a handful. And you can say one is too many, but it's not an epidemic. And where we do have problems with crime, it's a function of citizens more than it is non-citizens. So if you want to deal with it, but don't make it a boogeyman, because that's not fair. Demolish the foreign drug cartels. Awesome. How? Crush gang violence. Great. How? Lock up violent offenders. Okay. We do now in select places. It was done so much they changed policy and went way too far in the other direction, which is what he's really talking about. Places like New York, where Alvin Bragg routinely makes the DA of New York City, of Manhattan rather, routinely makes felonies into misdemeanors and then made a misdemeanor into a felony to prosecute Trump. There is a problem with that, but it's targeted. And the idea that you have an epidemic of migrants is overreach. Rebuilding our cities. Number 11, rebuilding our cities, including Washington, D.C., make them safe, clean, and beautiful again. Infrastructure. Promised the first time, did nothing. Biden did it. Not sexy, often goes unnoticed. You don't win elections with it. I say empty promise. 12, strengthen and modernize our military, making it without question the strongest, most powerful in the world. 13, keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve. No, I'll go back to 12 for a second. You should cut military spending. There is no real need, based on how we use our military and what we do, to justify the spending that was always about our fear coming out of World War II, our fear. But now it's just a boondoggle for a handful of companies. And we don't need to spend on defense the way we do anymore. It's not practical. We know we have enough right now to have mutually assured destruction. It's about special forces. It's about targeting. We don't need all these bases. We don't need all these people. It's really like a job program, but we're asking for the men and women who do it to put way too much on the line for us. I think we should rethink the military, shrink it. If you want to make jobs for people, make them here at home and have them working in communities instead of just this specter of taking on an enemy that never gets realized. 13, keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. Okay. The United States doesn't unilaterally do that. 14, fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. That's an interesting one because Republicans have been suggesting the opposite for years and been stopped from doing it largely by Democrats. Or is that the right decision? I don't know. Should it be older than 65? I know I'll be working past that. Lord willing, opportunity provided. But it's interesting that that's on there when his party has been against that. 15, cancel the electric vehicle mandate and cut costly and burdensome regulations. That's a good one. Why? Because the electric EV is not a panacea and it's not for now. We're not ready for it. The grid isn't ready for it. The price point's not ready for it. And we should be doing an all-in mentality, all-in approach, every different fuel source. And then as they become more efficient and more effective, then you'll see that rising to the top. But you should be all in. We went too far, too fast, and there was a propaganda aspect to that also, or at a minimum, wishful thinking. 16, cut federal funding for any school, pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and other inappropriate sexual, racial, or political content on our children. Slippery slope. Slippery slope. I know you're afraid of transgender and that they're going to make your kid non-binary, whatever that means to you. I don't fear that. I believe that more ideas are better than fewer. And I don't like any form of censorship, and this sounds like censorship to me. Critical race theory has been made a boogeyman. It's not in abundance. It's not what most people think it is. It is not white shame and social engineering to give the brown everything that the white has. But again, I don't like government messing with the schools. I would rather have more ideas at play than less. You just have balance. You know, the same guys who want intelligent design taught in schools as well as evolution. So you see what I'm saying? More ideas is better than fewer, but when people are pushing their ideas on you, intelligent design, that's for people of faith who have a very specific reckoning of God's role in our existence. Okay? It certainly is not for a secular society unless you want to have it as an and. So you got to be very careful about playing with what you get to learn and what you don't get to learn. 17, keep men out of women's sports. This is a no-brainer, and it's a real easy way to cheapen the respect for transgender people. You don't want a guy like me playing basketball against your 12-year-old kid. I know. I get it. And I get how frustrating it is when records are shattered by men who are now women. I get it. One, I don't see it as a big and major pressing concern. Oh, yeah, well, it is for this one kid. Look, I agree. But this one is too many thing bothers me because we allow so many to be not enough in so many other aspects. But when we hit a culture war, all of a sudden one is too many. One is too many. And I don't buy that because that's not how Trump or our government or our leaders approach a lot of problems that really matter. They allow a lot of people to suffer when they don't have to. But now that there's some political currency in it, one girl not getting a scholarship because of transgender equality is one too many. Now, I'm not saying that it makes sense to have people who look like me competing against women. I get it. But it's also not the crux of the issue either. So you got to find a remedy, of course, but I don't know that it should be a top 20 issue in terms of what America is struggling with. But again, that's a political issue. 18, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. This is propaganda. I'm fine with that. But pro-Hamas radicals, really. So what does that mean? So you're not allowed to believe in ideas that we find offensive as Americans? So you can't believe it, or so you don't have to act on it anymore? We could just kick you out for saying you believe it? Really? I'm not with that. Make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. Okay, I don't know what that means. Again, I think it's just interesting to me that in a top 20 set of promises, you're talking bullshit that just panders. I would think that you can come up with 20 serious things where there's no pandering, where this is something that should really make sense to a lot of people as an immediate need. I don't like what happened on the campuses. And I think there is a role for change. But again, I'm not going to have it made a boogeyman and have someone just wave it in my face where they're not going to really do anything about it. Look, we have a problem on our college campuses of not allowing enough ideas. I don't want less ideas. I want conservative ideas. I want liberal ideas. I want ideas that make me uncomfortable. I want ideas that sicken me. I want them all out there in the marketplace of ideas for two reasons. One, I don't believe in censorship. And two, I believe the more ideas you have, the easier it is for the better ideas to float to the top. Because in a vacuum, sometimes it's hard to understand an argument or why a way of thinking is particularly persuasive or should have purchase with you. But when you compare it to a shit idea, that helps. So let the shit be out there. It makes it easier for the better ideas to get clarified, in my opinion. What's yours? 19, secure our elections. including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. Proof of citizenship is the only thing that comes up as something we have to discuss. There are reasons of disenfranchisement that states have moved away from voter ID requirements. There's a reason. Is it a compelling reason? I don't know anymore. I don't know. I have said I don't think you should have to have a license to vote because I think that there are people who don't have licenses because they don't drive, and that's a real thing, especially in big cities. And I think it would disproportionately affect those populations, and I think that's exactly what Trump wants, to push down that black minority vote. Securing the elections, of course. Same-day voting, why? Why? No other country does that. Why? Why wouldn't you want more voting? Why wouldn't you allow it to be online? Why wouldn't you make it easier? Because you want to limit how many people vote. That's why. And that's why it's interesting. They want you to have a license to vote. They did not want you to be able to register when you got your driver's license. Think about that. Republicans were and are, depending on who we're talking about, against motor voter. Do you remember motor voter? Motor voter is I'm registering to get my driver's license. I can register to vote at the same time. As a federal thing, tie it to highway funds or something like that. They were against it. Why? They didn't want more people voting. But now they want you to have a driver's license in order to vote. Do you see? Do you see the perversity there? See the game. See the game. 20, unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. That's not what unites people. Common cause, hope, aspiration, imagination, interdependence, caring about each other, that instruction, that reminder, that demonstration, uniting us behind common goals and ideals and values. Tricky, but that's what brings people together. Asking them to come together, speaking language of unity, making accommodations, practicing forgiveness, remembering the instruction, divine but also secular, of loving mercy and tolerance. That's what brings a population together, especially a disparate one, where diversity is the rule, not homogeneity. This is an experiment. It's not just success. That's not what brings people together. If anything, success can also divide because it creates haves and have-nots. Right? We're kind of suffering from that right now. It shows that he fundamentally does not understand what unity is about because he's not a unifier. That's not his proposition to you. His proposition is things suck, it's scary, let me go in there and break it. Let me go in there. He's not an antidote. He's a virus. You want Trump to go in and make the political corpus, the body, sick, and hoping that the fever will break the infection and that they'll get better by his disruption. Didn't work the first time. And I don't believe in this deep state conspiracy propaganda stuff. I don't believe in it. Yes, bureaucracy is real. Yes, it can have its own ambitions. Yes, there is a guiding hand. Always has been. That's how collectives are. It works at the company that you work for also. So those are the 20 promises. What happened to gay marriage? What happened to it's between a man and a woman? What happened to reproductive rights? Nothing in the 20 promises. Why? Because they're losing issues. That's why. Are they not priorities for this president and this party anymore? Very interesting that they are not included. Now, they are part of the overall policy discussion for the convention planning from the GOP, but not in the 20 promises. Why? Because they're losers, because this is a culture war, and they know where they win and they know where they lose. You see, it is not just about policy. It is not about principle. It's about practicality. Reproductive rights is not going well for Republicans because they took them away from women and maybe men if states start extending it to IVF. Similarly, gay marriage is part of our culture. Marriage is between people who love each other and maybe want to start a family. We don't give definition to people's love. That's not the American way. So suddenly they are out of the promises. But it doesn't mean that those issues are out of the minds of the right fringe. Beware. See the promises for what they are and what they are not. Now do the same with the Democrats. We will. One thing at a time. Everybody's saying if they're voting for Trump and they're confronted with Trump's failings as an individual, they'll say, yeah, but it's about the policies. We just reviewed his 20 promises. Do they work for you? I'm Chris Cuomo. Thank you for being here with me at the Chris Cuomo Project, for subscribing and following, checking me out on News Nation every weekday night, 8 p. and 11 p. Eastern. You can get this ad-free on my Substack and learn all about my long COVID journey and what I'm doing for my own life. And the walk and talks are back there, where you get into what I've learned from the world of philosophy and the world of hard knocks. And hopefully it can help your life go a little bit better in places where mine has not. And if you want to ask me a question directly, you can get me on Connect. We can connect on Connect, and we can set up video calls for groups. People seem to dig that, and you will find me there. And I wear my independence. I'm a critical thinker. I'm not part of a party. Are you? I'm a free agent. Are you? Wear it proudly, and the money goes to doing good things. My friends, the problems are real. The solution is in all of us. So let's get after it.